Hello, you brilliant humans. Welcome back to the Wild Files, the podcast where we cut through the noise and get straight to the real practical truth about the people side of running and growing an MSP. Today, we're talking about one of the strangest leadership feelings in the MSP world. The moment your business is clearly succeeding, but also starts to feel slightly heavier to run. Revenue is climbing, clients are happy, sales momentum is strong. From the outside, everything looks like growth done right. But internally, something more subtle is happening. The service desk atmosphere changes. Escalations feel more frequent. Leaders are spinning more plates than they used to. And quietly, almost invisibly, hiring momentum begins to fall behind business momentum. Not dramatically, not overnight, just enough to create tension. And this episode is about that tension. Because if you understand it early, you can design your way out of it. If you ignore it, it will eventually design pressure for you. Growth feels exciting in spreadsheets, but it feels exhausting in ticket queues. So let's rewind for a moment. Think back to when your MSP was smaller. You probably remember the buzz, the closeness, the sense that every new hire was a personal decision. You interviewed people in meeting rooms that doubled as storage spaces. You sold the vision over coffee. You onboarded engineers by sitting next to them on day one. Hiring felt instinctive, human, immediate, and most importantly, manageable. Because the scale of pressure was still low enough for personality and intuition to carry you. But growth changes the physics of leadership. So when your client base expands, complexity multiplies, technology stacks deepen, service expectations rise. And suddenly you're not just hiring someone who can fix issues, you're hiring someone who must protect reputation, safeguard delivery consistency, and stabilize team energy. That is a completely different level of hiring responsibility. In small MSPs, hiring is a conversation. In scaling MSPs, hiring becomes infrastructure. See, there's always a tipping point. At first, growth feels like adrenaline. Wins feel energizing. Ambition feels limitless. Then one day you notice the operational atmosphere feels, denser. Not broken, not failing, just heavier. Tickets that would have been resolved comfortably now require juggling. Senior engineers are drawn into reactive firefighting more often. Strategic planning becomes fragmented by resourcing worries. It's like driving a car that still accelerates well but suddenly feels harder to steer. That is growth friction, not fiction. And the friction is not failure, it's feedback. It is the business signaling that its people's systems are still configured for, yesterday's size. See, growth does not break MSPs, outdated hiring systems do. So here is where leadership psychology becomes fascinating. As delivery pressure increases, hiring decisions begin to carry emotional weight. You are no longer just choosing talent. You are choosing relief. Relief for the team, relief for yourself, relief for clients who expect seamless service. This is the moment where interview processes subtly change tone. Questions become shorter, standards become more flexible, concerns become negotiable. You might hear yourself thinking, we can develop them once and sometimes that works, but often it creates a hidden future cost. Because pressure-driven hiring rarely creates cultural stability. It creates temporary breathing space, followed by long-term adjustment work. Adjustment work, that drains leadership energy faster than growth creates it. Fast hiring relieves pressure today. Misaligned hiring creates pressure for the next 12 months. So let's talk about your existing team, because they are usually the first to feel the recruitment bottlenecks. High-performing MSP engineers are incredibly resilient. They stretch, they absorb complexity, they protect client relationships instinctively. But resilience is not infinite. When Capacity gaps persist. Invisible workload begins to accumulate. More context switching, more emotional labour, more responsibility without additional authority. They rarely complain early. They compensate. Until one day they quietly decide they want a calmer environment. From the outside, leaders often experience this as sudden resignation. From the inside, it was months of silent strain. This is why hiring lag and retention risk are deeply connected. They are two expressions of the same structural imbalance. Your best engineers do not leave because they are weak. They leave because they were strong for too long. So let's be very direct about the business impact. In an MSP, technical headcount is not just operational capacity, it's commercial capability. Every open role influences, utilization forecasts. Every delayed hire influences client onboarding confidence. Every overstretched engineer influences service perception. You see, growth without talent flow is like selling more contracts without upgrading your network bandwidth. Eventually, performance will drop, and clients rarely analyze root causes. They simply experience inconsistency. This is why recruitment maturity becomes a strategic leadership function at scale. It's not an HR task. It's not an admin process. A growth stabilization discipline. Sales creates opportunity. Hiring protects delivery. Stability comes from respecting both. There's also a deep human side to this stage of growth. Leaders begin carrying background worry. It's not dramatic panic, it's persistent cognitive noise. You start thinking in contingency mode. What happens if two engineers leave close together? Can we realistically take on another complex client environment? How close are we to service desk fatigue? These thoughts, they sit quietly in the back of your mind during strategy meetings, during client dinners, even during weekends. And when this cognitive load builds, growth starts to feel like something to manage cautiously rather than to pursue boldly. The strongest MSP leaders are not fearless. They are structured. They design hiring rhythms so pressure is distributed instead of concentrated. Confidence in growth comes from confidence in your hiring pipeline. This is where the real evolution begins. Scaling MSPs stop treating recruitment as a response mechanism and start treating it as a design discipline. They forecast hiring needs based on sales trajectory. They define role outcomes before vacancies appear. They build relationships with future talent months in advance. They treat interviewing quality as seriously as technical project quality. Because understanding something very powerful, talent flow stability creates service delivery calm. And calm teams solve complex problems far more effectively than frantic teams. When hiring becomes intentional, leadership bandwidth returns, decision clarity improves, growth begins to feel energizing again instead of breathless. Recruitment is not about filling seats, it's about engineering organizational resilience. So, if your MSP is growing right now and hiring suddenly feels heavier than it once did, this is not a crisis signal. It's a maturity signal, a signal that instinct must now be supported by structure, that ambition must be matched by talent strategy, that sustainable success is built through deliberate team design. Growth itself is not destabilizing. Unplanned growth is. And hiring rhythm is one of the most powerful stabilizers you can build into a scaling service business. So here is a leadership question I want you to carry with you this week. Are you still hiring like a startup while trying to operate like a scale-up? Because sustainable MSP success is not created by winning more work alone. It's created by building teams who can deliver that work with confidence, consistency, and pride. Stay bold, stay intentional, and as always, stay wild.